The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, and this is all the fun you could want to have when reading a book. This book was a roller coaster of emotions and nerves and stress and high pressure situations and excitement, and it was overall such a joy to read. So this book, Lies of Locke Lamora, is the first in the Gentleman Bastards sequence, and we follow a collection of orphans who are brought up for one purpose and one purpose only. They are there to steal, con, lie, cheat, and heist their way to the tippy top. And the funniest thing is, their motivations are so unclear because even when they do pull off different heists and cons and make all this money, they don't even end up using it for anything. They use that money to buy new costumes and outfits. They just have a house with a safe with a whole lot of money because they aren't motivated by the money. They just want to keep pulling as many cons and heists as they can. And we are along for the journey, and boy oh boy, is it a good journey. Something I really loved about this story is that we follow what would normally be the bad guys, except they're not the bad guys. We love them. They're our orphans. They're our orphans who are trained to do purely evil and cruel things, totally selfishly, for a ruler, not a ruler, but for their leader who is just out and out evil. In fact, he's a priest. So he's so manipulative that he disguises himself as a priest, but he is wicked and evil and has bad intentions, and all he wants to do is use these orphans to make as much money as he possibly can for himself. So yeah, we're following bad people, but we love them. They're our gentleman bastards. Now, one thing that you have to accept when you read this book is that this is a very far-fetched, silly, over-the-top, unrealistic story, and it's not meant to be any different. It's not meant to be totally believable. It's meant to be about bad people who we learn to love because they're such great characters, going out and doing unrealistic things, getting themselves into the worst kinds of trouble, the worst situations, and that is what's so fun about this story. It's not supposed to be realistic. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. It's just a total joyride. So if you can put all of those criticisms aside and just enjoy this for the story that it is, you will have a great time reading it. The first thing I really want to touch on is the characterizations in this book, and they were brilliant. These characters were so easy to latch onto, and like I said before, these are not good people. They're not there to do good things. They're there to rob the wealthy. But overall, their dynamic as friends, as teammates, as crew members trying to get their evil, mission achieved, they are just so endlessly entertaining, and their dynamic between each other and their relationships was so raw and real and believable, even though everything they were trying to achieve was not believable. As for the plot was as basic as anything in the world, and it didn't need to be any more complex than it was. We follow a group of orphans trying to rob the wealthiest people in society, and we run into all sorts of problems. Simple as that. There's one particularly bad evil character who intertwines themselves with our group of orphans. That takes a really fun, interesting turn and a really cool twist. But overall, it's a very simple plot. As for the world building, I'd say that's actually one of my criticisms for the story, although I will preface that by saying I don't think it actually negatively impacted the story too much, but they did put a lot of focus, or I should say Scott Lynch, the author, put a lot of focus on details, and sometimes even some chapters were devoted to giving us a bit of a history of this landscape and this world, but it didn't really feel relevant to me, and it didn't grip me. It didn't make me want to learn more about it. It just kind of made me think, I want to get back to the story. Give me more of the story. So I would say that the world building was a bit of the criticism. If you want a funny reference, what I pictured the whole time while reading this story was Lara Croft Tomb Raider, the PC game from whenever it was, the mid to late 90s. That's what I pictured, even though that's probably not what he wanted me to picture. I found myself not being that invested in the world that he was building. I was more invested in the characters and the story. So world building, a little bit of a criticism. As for the magic was almost non-existent. In fact, thinking back, I think there was only one character that carried significant magical abilities, which is a bit disappointing because I love magic in stories. They don't need to have magic for me to enjoy them, but it's an element that I do look out for and that I do enjoy, and this book didn't have a lot of it. So again, it didn't take away from the overall experience, but it definitely is something that I think he could have added and made the story better. Now, I've only read book one, and this is a review for book one in the Gentleman Bastards sequence. So there's nothing to say that it's not more prominent in book 2 and 3. I just haven't gotten there yet. So like like I said, it didn't take away from the story, but I would have liked to see a bit more of it. Now, what I will do is give one massive criticism, and it's definitely something that will deter some people, but my advice is to push through it. And that is that the first 100 pages are very significantly worse than the rest of the story. It almost felt like two totally different books, and I don't know why Lynch dragged the first portion out so long. It was like nails on a chalkboard for me. I didn't enjoy it at all, but I'd heard enough reviews from BookTube, from people like Daniel Green and Murphy Napier, who I really respect their opinion. They had talked about this book being fantastic and the whole series, and it sounded good enough to me to push through. And I'm very glad I did. So what I would suggest to you is, if you pick up this book and you don't know to expect that, now you do. Expect that the first 100 pages is nothing like the rest of the book, but it's well worth persisting through because the rest of the story is brilliant. Getting back to all the positives, because this book is overall a really positive experience. I cannot tell you how much fun I had reading these books. The characters were incredible. I learned to love them more and more as the story went. Locke is just a brilliant character, and Jean, if you don't love Jean after the 3/4 mark and beyond, then I don't even know what to say to you. The potential of this relationship between these two characters, this bromance, just has such potential, and I can tell that it's going to be used so well in the later stories, and I've heard enough good things from other people to expect that it is going to get better and better, and I loved the way this relationship and the way this story took off. One thing I do want to point out, and it's a criticism that a lot of people have, and that is that there is a lot of swearing in this book, like an unnecessary, almost constant amount of swearing. Now, it's something that I didn't notice so much. It's something that didn't affect me or impact me. It didn't take away from the story. It didn't take the forefront, but I know a lot of people will notice it because there was a lot of profanities and they were regular, like it was used a lot. So just be aware of that. Now, while I can totally acknowledge that this was not a perfect book and it wasn't told perfectly, there were definitely some criticisms people would have. It was not flawless. I had 5-star fun reading this book after the 100-page mark. This was just such an entertaining story of great characters going through crazy situations. I had so much fun as a reader, and I imagine if you have a similar taste to me, you will as well. So on that note, let me know down below, what did you think of our characters? Did you love them? Who was your favorite character and why? Also, if you enjoyed this review, give this video a thumbs up. Help support me and grow this channel. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me in the future, and I'll catch you next time. See ya!